And there's been a certain amount of talk about Batman. But nobody's pointed out the most important thing about Bruce Wayne, which is, yes, he attended Princeton, but he didn't graduate.
I'm a self-taught filmmaker. I never went to film school. I never studied filmmaking in any way. I started making films when I was a kid, when I was, I think, 7 years old. Making films using my dad's Super 8 camera and little action figures, doing stop motion films, a little bit of animation and a certain amount of live action. And I just carried on making films as I grew up. And over the years they got bigger, hopefully better, but more elaborate. And there never really was a period in my life where I completely stopped doing that. So I was always moving up, eventually from Super 8 to 16mm films. And then I think what following represents is kind of the peak of what I was able to do on my own or just with friends, just using our own resources and borrowing equipment and sort of using the things around us to make a film.
There never really was a period of my life where I completely stopped doing that. That is one of the quietest, most honest things any successful person has ever said in public, because it doesn't sound like a success story. It sounds like a compulsion. Nolan wasn't special at 7 years old. He was just a kid with a borrowed camera and something inside him that had nowhere else to go. 23 years of putting one foot in front of the other before the world knew his name. The question people always ask is, do I have what it takes? But that's never the real question. The real question is, am I willing to keep going when there's no proof yet that it's working? Because the proof always comes later.
When you're starting out particularly, you have to play to your strengths. You have to do something that really excites you, and whatever's different about that. In the case of following, the nonlinear structure was a somewhat unusual choice. But it's those things that are the strength of the project. It's the things that you can bring to what you're doing or bring to the filmmaking craft that maybe not everybody else is doing, maybe not everybody else can do or has thought to do. That's what's going to distinguish the thing. So it might seem in some ways more difficult or seem like something that would make the project more difficult to sell when it's finished, what have you. But for me, I think the answer was definitely to try to play to my strengths and the things that I personally was passionate about.
The nonlinear structure of following, the thing that made it harder to explain, harder to sell, harder to fit into what people expected, was the exact thing that made it impossible to ignore. He didn't smooth it off. He pushed it further. And years later, when someone asked him what the only useful advice he'd ever received was, he said this.
I think really the only useful advice I ever got in terms of, trying to figure out your way into the film business, the film industry, is to get yourself a script and hang on to it. You have to stick to your guns. You have to find something that you can do that maybe other people couldn't do. And even if that seems different or doesn't fit into people's expectations, that's what's going to distinguish it if you can do it successfully. So I think it's really about sticking to your guns and doing something that you passionately believe in rather than trying to appeal to some desire that you imagine other people have for what they want to see in a film. I think you have to be true to your own passion and your own sense of what excites you.
We are not building what we believe in. We are building what we think other people want to believe in. We are adjusting the edges, making it easier to swallow, making it safer, making it smaller. And in doing that, we erase the only thing that was worth building in the first place. Whatever is strange about your work, whatever makes people tilt their head, that is not the problem. That is the point. Playing to your strengths, sticking to your guns. It only works if you first accept something deeply uncomfortable about yourself. You have to accept that you are not finished, that you never will be, and that the gaps in you are not evidence of your failure.
We were very melancholy, as some of you will be, but we were ready to leave. We were ready to get out there. And we felt very much as if we had accumulated this sort of whole wheel of brie of knowledge. Of course, what I realized is actually a Swiss cheese. And those gaps in there are the point. They're the important part, because you're going to get out there and you're going to fill those gaps that you don't even know you have, those gaps in your knowledge. You're going to fill them with experience, some of it marvelous, some of it terrible. And you're going to learn that way. But what you have achieved here will see you through that. And I can say, in all honesty, 20 years on, I'm a much better student now than I was when I was at college. And I think the same will be true for most of you, in truth. You'll carry on learning, you'll carry on expanding, and most importantly, some of those gaps will be filled with the most precious thing of all, which is new thought, new ideas, things that are going to change the world.
The gaps are the point. The empty spaces in you are where your actual life gets built. And Nolan, this man who built worlds that made people question what was real and what wasn't, understood this better than almost anyone. Because his entire career was built in the gaps. The gap between what film school would have taught him and what he taught himself. The gap between what studios expected and what he insisted on making. The gap between the spinning top falling and the cut to black.
And it speaks to the theme that I want to introduce, which is a respect for reality. I feel that over the last couple of decades, I feel that over time, we've started to view reality as the poor cousin to our dreams, in a sense. We've started to think of reality as this kind of gray pebble at the center of wonderful abstract thought that transcends it. And I want to make the case to you that our dreams, our virtual realities, these abstractions that we enjoy and we surround ourselves with, they are subsets of reality. Inception had something to say about this, and I apologize to those of you who haven't seen it, because I'm about to spoil the ending of it for you. But at the end of the film, there's a spinning top that's spinning, and if it falls or doesn't fall is the key idea. Is it a dream? Is it reality? And the way the end of that film worked, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Cobb, he was off with his kids. He was in his own subjective reality and didn't really care anymore. And that makes a statement that perhaps all levels of reality are equally valid. The camera moves over to the spinning top, and just before the spinning top appears to be wobbling, there's a cut to black, and I skip out of the back of the theater before people catch me. And there's a very, very strong reaction from the audience, usually a bit of a groan, but the point is, objectively, it matters to the audience in absolute terms, even though what they're watching is a fiction, is its own virtual reality. But the question of whether that's a dream or whether it's real is the one I've been asked the most about any of the films I've made. It matters to people enormously, and that's the point about reality. Reality matters. It won't be transcended.
The man who cut to black before the top stopped spinning is telling you that reality matters. Think about the weight of that. He spent his career giving you permission to live in the dream, to stay inside the spinning top, to not ask whether it's real or not. And then he walked out from behind the camera and told you to come back. Because here is what Nolan understood that most people never do. The dream is not the destination. The dream is the fuel.
And in the great tradition of these speeches, generally what happens is the speaker says something along the lines of, you need to chase your dreams. But I'm not going to say that because I don't believe it. I don't want you to chase your dreams, I want you to chase your reality. And I want you to understand that you chase your reality not at the expense of your dreams, but as the foundation of your dreams. It's very, very important that you take the elevated position that you have achieved over these 4 years, the advantages that this fantastic education has conferred on you, and you do everything you can with it to improve the world, to improve reality. In whatever field you're going off to work in, I think looking at fundamentals, looking at how people are really affected by what you do,
Chase your reality. Not the version of yourself that already made it. Not the life that exists on the other side of some imaginary threshold where everything finally falls into place. The person you are in this exact moment, with the gaps and the borrowed equipment and the years no one has seen yet. That is your reality, and the people who change things, the ones the world eventually calls great, they didn't wait for a better reality to begin. They took the one they had, and they made it mean something.
Oscar Wilde once said, "The old believe everything, the middle-aged suspect everything, the young know everything." You do know everything. I'm clearly in my suspicious phase, and I'd love to impart some of that to you because I think there's an enormous amount of work to be done. And in the great tradition of these speeches, I don't have to tell you how to do it, I just have to tell you that it's your problem now.